there's a big focus on profitability rather than growth and subscriber growth at all cost. So I think that's obviously made a lot of people really focus on how are they sort of managing that cost base, how are they thinking about the different revenue streams that they want to bring into their streaming services, what kind of pricing and packaging strategies are people looking at.
Hi everybody, for today's episode of Retention Zone, the video podcast focused on stream monetization, churn and retention. I have the pleasure to have me, can I say a veteran of the industry, Matt Collier.
Hi Carlo, how are you?
I'm good. So maybe to start, let's talk about your experience in this field. I know many people have met you in the different places you've been, quite some big names in your past, I would say, right?
Yeah, indeed. I've been very lucky to work for some amazing brands, but yeah, I've been sort of working in the streaming subscription business for around 20 years now in the sports media and entertainment sector. I sort of, I guess, describe myself as a commercially focused marketeer. So I look at the business as well as I look at the, how do we deliver it. I've held a combination of senior commercial and marketing roles at Setanta Sports way back in the day, North American Sports Network, ESPN, the IOC. I did a stint in Switzerland working on the Olympics at the Olympic Channel, and more recently I was working for Play Sports Network, which owned the brands GCN and GMBN, which was the global cycling network. That business was part of Warner Brothers Discovery, and I ran the GCN Plus global cycling streaming business there, which was a great business to be part of.
Yeah, you're right. I remember we met in one of the big meeting room in Madrid with like 24 people trying to figure out Olympic Channel in the best way possible. I remember that.
That's right. There was large meetings there, that's for sure.
And so, I mean, obviously you have a good observation point in this industry. How would you describe, the latest evolution of streaming media and where is it going? Because there are a lot of changes, consolidation, so it's maturing. So obviously a lot of change, which is, to be honest, very exciting to observe. Otherwise it would be boring.
Yeah, it's very exciting. I think there is constant change. It's very hard to sort of rest, although I think it's very, very cyclical. I think we've all agreed that we're sort of seeing lots of things sort of developing and changing and almost coming back again. So we've seen that sort of cable bundling, then we're sort of looking at the unbundling of that, the launch of multiple streaming services, rebundling, creating new partnerships. There's been an increase in consolidation as well, as seen across many brands and many businesses. And also we're sort of seeing a lot more aggregation as well of, the major players, such as Amazon, for example, who are bringing a number of different services together sort of under one platform. So that's quite interesting. As a result of that, we've also seen a lot of launches of sort of genre-specific services, sort of serving those niche audiences. But at the same time, we've also seen a lot of the multi-sport, multi-entertainment or multi-genre services that are out there as well. I think what that does, though, is, as it's been commented on previous episodes, that increases a lot of the fragmentation in the marketplace. And does that create consumer confusion? Discoverability of content therefore becomes a lot more challenging as well. I think, sort of anecdotally hearing that people watch some amazing films or amazing series, but then, they often can't remember which, platform they watched it on. So I think brand therefore becomes really, really important to become more distinctive and create that sort of relevant, relative differentiation in the market. So the other important point I just wanted to raise on that is a huge shift now. There's a big focus on profitability rather than growth and subscriber growth at all cost. So I think that's obviously made a lot of people really focus on how are they sort of managing that cost base, how are they thinking about the different revenue streams that they want to bring into their streaming services, what kind of pricing and packaging strategies are people looking at, and ultimately how to continue to grow those businesses and hit the bottom line at the same time, which is a real focus right now.
And I think maybe if you can, what would be good is deep dive for a moment exactly on this specific. So you said it perfectly. Profitability means looking at the numbers, obviously how you earn your money, how you spend your money, and how you get people to stay more, you acquire different people. So I know that, I mean, direct to consumer marketing, if you really work in a, let's say in a subscription OTT or in hybrid OTT, it's the crucial component. So I don't want to say it's very often underestimated, because it's possibly not that true, but obviously at the beginning, everybody was focusing, oh, we need to get the video working. We need to get the live streaming working when we have scale, blah, blah, blah. But more and more, I think direct-to-consumer marketing is crucial these days. Like, I mean, and this is your experience. So maybe if you can get into whatever detail you can with your latest experiences, where you really went the full cycle, I guess, with the Global Cycling Network, that would be great for everybody to learn.
Yeah, I think with GCN Plus, for example, we started from zero and launched it from the outset. Yeah, from nothing, and also in the middle of a pandemic.
Sorry, you know the names of the first 5 subscribers, because I would go and check.
I think I was too busy trying to sort of set everything up to worry about it. I was just glad to see subscribers come in the door, I think. But yeah, no, I think it was a really exciting time. But I think yeah, the role of marketing more broadly is really, really important. I think you ultimately have to be the voice of the consumer and bring that sort of internally, and sort of make the business sort of market orientated and looking out at and understanding the consumer perspective. First and foremost as well is understand the business, right? Understand the business objectives about what we're trying to achieve. So look at the subscriber numbers. What's the forecasting looking like? What do we need to get to? What are the revenue numbers? Understand the KPIs, what's driving those forecasts, what are the metrics, look at churn rates, retention rates, ARPU and LTV. So all of those sort of things, first and foremost, gives you a position of where the business needs to get to. And then marketing's role is to then deliver a strategy and deliver a plan for how you're going to get there and how you're going to deliver that. So I think I always start with, and every credible strategy should start with diagnosis. So it's like, do the research, understand the data, look at the customer insights, understand the market, understand your audience. I think once you sort of get to that place, then you can start building your strategy about who you want to target, what markets you want to target in, what sort of messaging and how you want to position yourself in the market in order to reach those consumers and make your brand and the content that you're offering make sense to that consumer, so that they're interested in then subscribing and signing up to that business. So I think that's typically where I would start, and then you go from sort of that once you go through diagnosis, you move into strategy, you then move into tactics. So it's understanding the product, the content, the price, the packaging, where you're going to promote it, what channels are you going to use to reach those customers and that audience. I think all those things become super important. Once you be able to deliver that, you can then stick to that strategy for at least for the next 12 months, and then you can sort of see how that's delivering. Because initially you're looking at, when we launched GCN Plus, it was all about acquisition, all about growth from the outset. Retention is something that you don't start with, because you don't have any customers to retain. So, but the second those subscribers come in, for example, because we were doing live cycling, we had a big number of subscribers, volume of subscribers come in on a particular day or a particular period of time. So immediately I'm thinking, well, if they're on an annual subscription in 12 months time, we've got a massive retention window we've already got to sort of work towards. And that also plays in, alongside a huge acquisition window for new subscribers. So then all of a sudden you've got these sort of dual strategies happening, where like another round of acquisition, we need to get new subscribers in the door. New subscribers will grow your business, but you need to make sure that you retain those customers as well. And so you have to have an acquisition, sort of a retention play, strategy in play for that period of time in 12 months time, if they're on an annual subscription, which we had a combination of annual and monthlies.
So I think it's it's a fascinating challenge, but also you were operating on a global scale, or mostly
We were,
global
yeah.
scale. So normally I've learned, I mean, through experience, that the global very often is multi-local. So how is that? Because some services are at least start national. So I think it's still super complex, but you have one less complexity, and global / multi-local is a complexity. What it meant for you in terms of, how did it impact everything you were doing?
It is complex. I think I mean, first and foremost, the rights landscape is complex. So, you're trying to sort of communicate that in some markets you have some of the biggest events and some of the, the biggest races. You have more flexibility with what you can do with your on-demand content or your highlights content and so forth. And in other markets, you're quite restricted. So therefore, you have to be, and we learned this quite quickly, that you have to be absolutely crystal clear to on your platform in terms of how you integrate into your product and how you're communicating in the market, what rights that you have. You don't want a load of people signing up thinking that they've got the biggest event in the calendar when actually we don't have that in the US, or we don't have that in Europe, but we do have it in another market. So there's a really important product and communicate UX at play here, where as soon as you land on the platform, if I'm visiting from the US, I want to make sure that I understand what content and is accessible in my market, because if I sign up and then all of a sudden I don't get that, that's a really negative experience, and I probably will never come back again, and you've lost that customer. So that becomes increasingly important. And then from a marketing perspective, being in the market, we were very, very localization was extremely important. So clearly all of our communication was in local language in the markets that we were targeting. You can't target the world, right? I mean, it's just there's no resource to do that. You've got to look at where the upside is. You've got to look at where the biggest opportunity is. You've got to look at where the most valuable customers are. So we concentrated on sort of 2 or 3 core markets, and localization was really, really important in the markets where you needed local language. But we also had the platform in local language, so we weren't putting ads in the market or communications into the market in local language, and they were coming to an English language platform. So we were localizing our product wherever we possibly could, in terms of language, but also in terms of experience, and also in terms of how we were communicating the content that was then available in those markets. So we're trying to sort of reduce those levels of complexity as best as possible. So that was it was challenging, and we learned fast, but I think ultimately we got there.
And another, I think you kind of mentioned it, but one thing that sport, especially if you focus on one sport, has that other type of entertainment don't, is seasonality, right?
Yeah.
So in certain cases, seasonality is very strict, and it's not even like almost a year. It's maybe 6 months, so maybe not in the case of cycling. How do you think this impacts, especially the unbundled services, I would say?
Seasonality plays, yeah, it's fascinating to sort of understand customer behavior and subscriber behavior. We saw that you're going to get these huge peaks of subscribers coming in the door at certain periods of time. And despite the fact that we had sort of annual subscriptions alongside monthly subscriptions, we always saw a similar pattern of people coming in towards the beginning of the season, and then we saw bumps at other points of the season as well. And typically, because we were fortunate enough to have sort of cycling's almost like year round, right? So I mean, there's almost no off season in cycling, but there are a window where some of the biggest races are. So at the end of the summer, it kind of begins to tail off a bit, but you move into other cycling disciplines, but they are sort of maybe less mass appeal, if you like. So you sort of expecting churn to some degree. But what we were trying to do was get as many people onto sort of annual subscriptions as possible. And, I think we were lucky that we had a heavy bias towards, annual subscribers. So what that just meant was we had these huge churn events or these retention windows that would likely to take place the following year. So I think what our challenge then shifted from not necessarily those that are on annual subscribers, but those that are on monthly subscriptions, where we were trying to sort of extend their tenure with us. So how do we get them beyond that sort of 4 or 5 month window? Can we upgrade them into an annual subscription, or can we extend their tenure on a monthly subscription? Some customers just love being on a monthly and love that flexibility and sort of that feeling that they can, cancel at any moment. But even if they end up spending more sticking on a monthly for more than 6 months or whatever it is. So so I think that season, and it doesn't matter whenever you subscribe. You could subscribe in May, you're still getting 12 months of cycling. It doesn't make any difference. But I think the natural customer behavior is, it's the start of the season, it's the start of the year, that's when I'm going to subscribe. I might cancel in 6 months time, but I will come back again, and you've got to be okay with that.
And I think that you mentioned before, it's packaging and pricing. I think product offering, packaging and pricing becomes where you play, where you try to find a way to, drive people to the annual or keep them on the monthly. And I think you need to plan a lot in advance. It's not that mid-season say, oh, we should do something. So having a strategy, tools that help you manage seasonality is part of being a platform that can sustain and thrive.
I think that's right, because I think you've just got to look at customer behavior and the different cohorts and how they're performing, right? So I think when are they coming in, when are these different peaks, when are these different troughs, how are they sort of managing their existing the way they're managing their own subscriptions on the packages that they're choosing. I think that's once you sort of start to see certain trends and certain patterns in the behavior, and then you sort of marry that to your sort of the season of your sports season, if you hold sports rights, becomes a really interesting play in terms of how you think about packaging going forward. Another example, actually, sort of back in the ESPN days, we had the NHL. We had season passes and monthly passes, and we also ended up developing a playoff pass because we just felt that there was such a concentration of people who didn't necessarily want the regular season, but they really all came in for the playoffs, and certain packages just didn't really work. So we sort of created something that, so some people wanted the whole thing, right? They would come in on day one, they wouldn't, they would be there the whole time. Some people would just drop in and drop out for certain games and certain teams, and others would then sort of just come in for the play, and there'd be a big chunk of people coming in for the playoffs. So I think we created a playoff pass and built some extra passes around different behaviors that actually worked. So it wasn't us inventing a new package, it was us looking at the customer insights, customer behavior, looking at the data to see how our customers were buying their packages, and seeing if we could create more and interesting, better packages for them that actually drove more acquisition, and we had increased our likelihood to increase retention.
And so there's two things that I wanted to ask. One is more, and that's my experience. I spent like 5 years on a subscription-based sport vertical OTT, NFL, Game Pass International. And one of my efforts was trying to put the team together, like, marketing, product, tech, business, as one team, because very often the solution comes from, so you need marketable features to launch the new season with new, a premises for a better product, etc. You need to understand the content deeply to understand which feature are meaningful. You need to understand the objectives of the business and the direct-to-consumer strategy, marketing strategy, to achieve week-by-week targets. So I think it takes a village is a stupid sentence, but I really saw it happening. I mean, we were able to grow it. And as we started to work more together, if you want season after season, this fact of, not that everybody is a generalist, but that you understand all the other elements, it's what I think really drove the growth. But that's my experience. So I don't know if you have an opinion on that.
Yes, I think you're spot on, Carlo. I think it was really important, in all the businesses I've ever worked in, that you're bringing together, certainly on the sort of, from the marketing side, you're trying to bring together the product team, the content team, and all aspects of the business together under sort of one core objective and one sort of mission, which is to deliver subscribers and, acquisition of subscribers and increase retention. And there's a number of ways to do that. So we looked at some research, for example, where we were seeing different reasons for people. Well, actually, we did two things, right? So we did some consumer insight into sort of saying, why would you subscribe or why wouldn't you subscribe to our service? And then when people left our service, we also ran a survey. Why have you left? Why have you cancelled your subscription? And actually, we were starting to see a couple of things that were sort of beginning to sort of join up, actually. One of those was, the availability of time. I don't think I'm going to use the service enough. And so, and some people said I cancelled because I didn't use it enough. So therefore, we're then sort of wanting to create a number of different ways of, with the product team of, well, how do we sort of get more people to stay on our service? How do we increase that sort of levels of engagement? How do we sort of, work with, the content teams to create different types of content? So we ended up coming up with a sort of a more of a comms plan around the fact that we had multiple devices. So it doesn't matter where you are, whether you're at home and you've got 8 hours spare or a whole weekend spare, whether you're out shopping or whether you're out with the kids, you can watch it on a mobile, you can watch it on, at home on the big screen, you can watch it on your laptop, wherever you are, you can watch it on a tablet. So that gives you more opportunities to engage with the content. And then in addition to that, then it's kind of like we had different types of content. So you could sit there and watch the entire live event, you could watch it on demand, you could watch short or long highlights, you could watch, in the cycling example, you could watch the last 5 kilometers. And so there are many different ways that you could chip in and watch that content on any different device. So what we were saying is that this product can fit into your life at any point, and then that can drive more and more. We can drive more engagement, we can drive more satisfaction for the customer, we can drive more value for the customer. That increases their likelihood to join, but also their likelihood to stay once they're on the service. So I think that was an absolutely fundamental point that we were trying to work with. So we created all that content. We also, had make sure that we're on as many different platforms and the best available screen to ensure that those subscribers were engaging with and seeing value in the subscription that they purchased.
And so I will still with this concept and call it like, maybe you need to put all the teams together looking at the data with rigor and honesty, because I've seen too many times everybody they already have a solution and they try to use the data to demonstrate their solution is a good idea. But what you said is basically, we look at the data together, we are in a rigorous way, obviously, and honestly, and we'll find a solution together, right? One last question. What about customer service? Is it still important? Is it super important? Should artificial intelligence cover 90% of that in a good way? Because I don't know. I don't like to talk to people because it takes 10,000 times. If I can find my solution online, I'm okay. And getting people to reply with voice is super expensive. What's your view on this last part of the experience, if you want?
First and foremost, customer service is critical. I think, when you are transacting with a service, when you're buying something and there is an issue or a problem, you really want that solved, and you want it solved efficiently. And if there's a problem with the service around particularly in sports, a key sporting window, and that sport is about to happen and the service isn't working, or you can't sort of access it, or you can't log on, or you can't, the basket's fallen over at the last possible moment, then you need that resolved very, very quickly and effectively. So it is critical. You can damage your brand and you can lose a customer very, very quickly by having poor customer service. So I think that is super important. People will give you feedback very, very quickly if they're unhappy with the customer service, and I think that is quite damaging. So we invested a lot of time in making sure that we were briefing our customer service teams, that they were understanding of exactly what products, packaging, pricing, the content that we offered. They really understood the service. I think that's absolutely fundamental. And I think being accessible in multiple markets, so we don't just work off, we're based in the UK, but we don't just work off UK hours. So we have to have something that's, available in markets around the world. So that's also super important. So I think all those elements become critical, because you could spend all that time and money investing in, amazing marketing campaigns that drive, loads of people to your service, and you could invest loads of time sort of developing your product, or, buying rights, or invest in content. But if all that falls over because something fundamental doesn't happen and you can't get hold of someone to help you fix it, all of that is wasted.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. So I didn't expect that level of being so hands-on. I know that you have done stuff continuously in your career, but if you want to say something stupid, from tech and product people thinking that the marketing people are always the one in light air, this was super concrete. I have to say, super concrete episode with a lot of, I've done that and this happened, and then I've decided to do that, and we decided to work together. So Matt, really grateful for your contribution, and hope to see you soon at one of the next events in our sector. And have a good summer I think you're in the UK, right?
I am. I'm based in Bath, so yeah.
That's a cool place to be.
It's a beautiful place to be. But yeah, thanks very much, Carlo. I've really enjoyed the conversation, and look forward to seeing you soon.
Okay, ciao. Thank you, Matt.
Yeah.